You got to find a better way to have the debate.
It is the only leverage we have. The reality is that Democrats are in the minority in the House.
You'll never get what you want. You'll never get it. Nobody has ever ended a shutdown getting what they want.
Progressive political host Tyler Cohen appeared as a guest on Chris Cuomo's program to discuss the ongoing government shutdown. The conversation centered on who should be held accountable, what kind of strategy Chris Cuomo believes Democrats need to follow, and the approach Tyler Cohen recommends for them. In this segment, we'll watch a few moments from their News Nation discussion, and I'll share my own take on their views. Let's break it down together.
42 million Americans who use food stamps could go hungry. SNAP runs out. Then you got WIC, Mothers and Children, 6-7 million people there. They're going to have funding run out. Brian says Republicans are to blame for all of it. Progressive YouTuber BTC right now. Good to see you, brother.
Chris, great seeing you as always.
My God, look at how luxurious your beard is compared to
I knew you were going to go there. I've been prepping for this Movember for a long time. We'll get you there.
It looks good, man. It looks good. I got to tell you, I don't envy your arguments, but I envy your facial hair. All right, so give it to me. How are Republicans responsible?
Because they could end this right now. They are choosing to make this issue of the shutdown an issue where they pit the sick against the hungry. The reality is this is a false choice. We don't need to be here. Prior to this moment, we've been able to afford both the ACA subsidies and SNAP benefits for 42 million Americans. So you have to ask yourself, why are we here? And the reality is that the Republicans passed their one big beautiful bill. They cut $1 trillion from healthcare. That included 17 million people worth of Medicaid benefits, and they also cut $350 billion worth of SNAP benefits. So if you're wondering how we got here, it's because we're dealing with a Republican Party that has full control of government, House, Senate, White House, and their priority is not to continue these programs. It is expressly to cut them. That's why they did it. Don't listen to what they say. Just watch what they do.
Okay. I will talk to you about the policies, and I don't disagree with the needs and what should be priorities, but that's why you have elections. And Trump won, and the debt and the deficit were huge problems, and health care is something that is seen as having a lot of fat to it. Do I agree? No. But that is why they picked these things. Now, you leave something out. We are where we are because of your party. The Senate won't give the votes on the Democratic side to get past the filibuster for reconciliation. That is why the government shut down. It is not a question. That is a fact.
Nor should they. And you want to talk about what the American people voted for? It was Trump and Republicans who said that they were going to protect earned benefits, not completely gut them like they've done right now. 78% of Americans. Wait, let me finish. 78% of Americans, and I know that you've showed this stat on your show, the Kaiser Family Foundation.
This is true.
78% of Americans agree that Congress should extend these ACA subsidies. So if you want to talk about a mandate for the American people, this is it.
Yes.
You know, you had just mentioned a moment ago, too, that there was some mandate to cut spending. The Republicans blew a $4 trillion hole in the deficit because they wanted to give a tax cut to millionaires and billionaires. So on this issue, they're not even abiding by the thing that they promised on the campaign trail. There's no deficit spending getting under control right here. They blew the deficit up.
Listen, again, here's the debatable point. They say no. The tax cuts drove the economy. The first administration was much better than Biden's economy. Of course, he had the pandemic, but that's how the cookie crumbles. You got to deal with what happens on your watch, and that's why they want the tax cuts. I don't agree. But here is your problem, Tyler Cohen. You are fighting the right fight, in my opinion. This is righteous. The subsidies are needed, and they wouldn't even be needed as much if so many red states didn't play politics and refused to expand Medicaid when they had the chance. And I have two ideas. The first one is right fight, wrong way, wrong battleground. Shutting down the government, and Schumer is a terrible messenger for you guys because everybody knows he did it. He doesn't want to make a deal right now because he thinks this pain is working for him. But this was the wrong way to have the right fight. And you can say this is the only leverage we had. I don't agree. You got to find a better way to have the debate.
It is the only leverage we have. The reality is that Democrats are in the minority in the House.
You'll never get what you want. You'll never get it. Nobody has ever ended a shutdown getting what they want. It doesn't happen because all we would have is shutdowns.
This is the only instance where the Democrats could put forward any leverage whatsoever. The vast majority of the American people are behind them. Like I said, 8 in 10 Americans agree that Congress should extend these ACA subsidies.
Brian Tyler Cohen makes a strong argument that most Americans side with Democrats when it comes to ACA subsidies. Chris Cuomo responds by saying that Trump's election was a kind of public approval for spending cuts, since people supposedly knew that would happen. But Brian Tyler Cohen pushes back, pointing out how Republicans have repeatedly promised to protect Social Security and Medicare while claiming they have an alternative health care plan. ABOCE, promise they've made since the early days of Obamacare, but never followed through on, simply because they don't care to. Whether someone's health insurance costs $10,000 a month or not, it doesn't concern them, because affordable care for ordinary citizens has never been a priority. Many Republican voters, as we see online all the time, don't want a cent of their tax money going to anyone they think doesn't deserve help. They'll say, get a job, even though most people receiving subsidies are already working. Interestingly, some conservatives, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone I rarely agree with, have begun to recognize the issue as healthcare costs rise for their own families. It often takes personal impact for them to realize how serious the problem is. Still, there are conservatives who depend on ACA subsidies and quietly support them. These same people often complain about government waste, citing billions sent overseas to places like Argentina or spent on endless wars, rather than being used to help Americans here at home. And that really raises an important question. If our tax dollars aren't meant to improve life in our own country, then what's their purpose? That's a point where people on both the left and right could potentially find common ground. Chris Cuomo also mentioned that Chuck Schumer isn't exactly an effective communicator, and even Brian Tyler Cohen wouldn't disagree. But the larger issue is how this situation gives Democrats a strategic advantage, which leads to the obvious question, why should anyone put their trust in Republicans on this matter?
The reality is the Democrats are trying to save Republicans from themselves. You had just mentioned these ACA subsidy extensions. In the last 5 years, the states that have adopted the ACA enrollment have largely been Republican states. We're talking Texas, Florida, West Virginia, Tennessee. The pain is going to be felt among Republican constituents. So at this point, the Republicans really, I mean, it's win-win for them to relent here and come to the negotiating table. But Democrats would be fools, Chris. Democrats would be absolute fools to surrender what little leverage they have and just take Republicans at their word when they say, hey guys, we'll totally, definitely negotiate with you. All we ask is that you surrender all your leverage, open up the government, and then come sit down with us, the people who just cut $1 trillion from healthcare.
Look, I'm with you, except for a couple of things. One is shutdown should be illegal. You're putting the pain on everybody else in the interest of making things better for everybody else. I think it's a mixed message. I don't think it plays for you guys as well as you think. The second thing is this. Fetterman says he trusts Thune to have negotiations. We'll see if he's right or wrong.
Let me ask you a question on that. Let me ask you a question on that.
Hold on. Let me give you my answer, and then you ask your question, and you get the last word. Cool. Here's the deal. We need the subsidies. Everybody wants the subsidies. You know they want the subsidies, Mr. and Mrs. Republican. I give you the reimbursements issue. You decide, Republicans, what states get reimbursed for giving emergency care to undocumented immigrants. Here, I give it to you. You decide the reimbursement rate and you own it. I'm giving you that issue. It is not about giving illegals, that ugly word, a free health care. Here, you can have it. I want the subsidies. Present that to the American people. You win all day long. You won't do it. I don't know why. But I'll give you a last word. Go ahead.
Yeah. So on this idea that the Republicans can come forward and ask for the Democrats to relent, just open up the government and then we'll sit down with you. That's apparently what John Fetterman is saying that he takes John Thune at his word for. It goes the other way. Why not just sit down with the Democrats today, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, hammer out a deal to extend these ACA subsidies? Hammer out a deal to extend these ACA subsidies, and then you open up the government. Look, the Democrats are all on board. All they're asking for with what little leverage they have is to extend the ACA subsidies. They're not asking for the sun and the moon here. They're not asking, to extend, like, this isn't Green New Deal. There's no poison pills. It is something that, again, has the vast majority of support across the country among both Democrats and Republicans.
It does, but not this way. Not this way. Nobody said shut down the government to do it. And
This
you
is
got
the
hooked up on
this
that
is the only way.
illegals health care, horrible poison
There is no. You and I both know that there is not a dime of federal funding that goes toward
So give it to
undocumented
them.
health care.
So give it to them. So give it to them.
Sure. I mean, that's not even up for debate. And the reality is they know it's not up for debate. They know that they're acting in bad faith. But I'm saying instead of surrendering the leverage that we have, ask these Republicans to come to the negotiating table right now. If they're acting in good faith when they say that they, of course, want to make a deal on ACA subsidies, do it right now. There's time today.
They will not reward the shutdown. They won't reward the shutdown because then the minority always does it. They have to pass a law that shutdowns are illegal, and then you can get into this. But I appreciate your policy points. I think you guys are fighting the right fight.
The Republicans should do that with the capital they have. But until then, this is it.
I got to jump. I love having the discussion. Let's have more of them, even though, man, you put me to shame. Not the arguments, the facial hair.
Brian Tyler Cohen is completely on point here. Meanwhile, Chris Cuomo keeps falling back on his usual both sides narrative on his News Nation program. He mentions Senator Fetterman, suggesting that Fetterman trusts Senator Thune. But honestly, if you're taking cues from Fetterman, who often seems more aligned with Republicans than Democrats, instead of listening to strong, reliable Democrats, that's a mistake. As Brian Tyler Cohen explains, Democrats have meaningful leverage right now, and giving that up would make no sense, especially when Republicans have repeatedly proven they don't negotiate in good faith. This is the same party led by Mike Johnson, who refuses to seat legitimately elected Democrats and continues to play political games for power. Republicans have shown little concern for ordinary Americans, even for their own supporters. They want to eliminate ACA subsidies because their wealthy backers and major corporations dislike paying the small share of taxes that help fund them. That's who the GOP truly serves, the rich and the powerful. Of course, there are Democrats who also cater to corporate interests, but Republicans are far more determined to see these healthcare subsidies vanish. If Democrats followed Chris Cuomo's suggestion to reopen the government before making a deal, Republicans would simply walk away from negotiations and let the ACA subsidies disappear altogether. That's why Brian Tyler Cohen is right. Democrats must hold firm and use the bargaining power they have instead of giving it up too early. Chris Cuomo's attempt to frame the issue as balanced on both sides just undermines their position. So who's really at fault for the government shutdown? Democrats or Republicans? Should Democrats cave and start negotiating only after the government reopens? And in this debate, who do you think made the stronger case? Chris Cuomo or Brian Tyler Cohen? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.